Hey guys, tonight we're heading into a world where bedtime stories weren't meant to soothe you, they were meant to warn you. We're wandering into the shadows of medieval folklore, where truth and terror often walked hand in hand, and where a rustling in the woods might not be the wind, but something older, something watching. It's a place of moss-covered chapels, witches with recipes older than kingdoms, and spirits who still knock at the door when the moon is high. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it in your corner of the world? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Underscore 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 underscore. You find yourself walking down a narrow path, swallowed on both sides by dense, whispering forest. The trees here don't sway, they lean, as if they're listening. Each one is ancient, gnarled, and somehow too aware of your presence. There's a dampness in the air, thick with the scent of moss, rotting leaves, and something else, something metallic, like rust or blood. Your footsteps crunch against the earth, but there's a second rhythm. Someone, or something, is matching your pace. You stop. It stops. You walk again. So does it. Not close. Not far. Just near enough to remind you that you are not alone. In medieval times, these woods were more than just trees and dirt, they were alive with stories. If someone vanished, the villagers didn't blame wolves or bandits. They blamed the forest. They said it took people. Not metaphorically. Literally. One hunter, Gerd, went in with his axe, boasting he'd bring back a stag. The axe came back. Stuck in a tree. Still dripping. You reach out and touch a tree trunk. The bark is rough like dried skin. Scratched into the side are markings, Latin? Runes? Or just the kind of scratches made by something that didn't have fingers? They used to say the forest had children of its own. If you listened at night, you'd hear crying, high-pitched, too soft to be animals. The unborn, they were called. Spirits of infants abandoned in the woods, neither living nor dead. Not strong enough to haunt a house, but strong enough to nest in hollow trees. They don't scream. They watch. Further in, you come across a small shrine, just stones, worn smooth, shaped like a hunched figure. No cross. No name. Just a carved mouth, as if it's forever whispering. A blind woman once lived nearby. She claimed that if you whispered your fear into the shrine's mouth, it would hold that fear for 7 nights. On the 8th, it would give it back. Louder. Historians still debate whether these forest shrines were pagan relics or the result of collective hallucination, brought on by starvation, fungal bread, or plain old medieval anxiety. Some say they were born of fear. Others insist the fear was born after. You push through thick underbrush and stumble upon the base of a lightning-struck tree. The top is gone. Hollow inside. Hanging from a branch, a frayed, rotting rope. Legend has it a storyteller was hanged here, a man who invented horrifying tales to keep children from wandering too deep. They said his lies were too vivid. That his words cursed the forest. So they killed him. And after that, everything he imagined began to happen. So the question is, was he lying? Or just reporting? As you pause, the shadows thicken. The forest seems to lean closer. You hear something like a lullaby on the wind. Gentle. Almost sweet. But it's not coming from any direction you can follow. Could be the breeze. Or maybe it's the whispering mouth on that shrine, rehearsing your name. You inhale deeply, cool, damp air laced with wild herbs and something old. A flicker of movement to your left, just a rabbit, maybe. Or not. You don't chase it. Not in this forest. Not tonight. The deeper you go, the stranger it gets. This place is stitched together from every story that ever kept a child awake. And right now, you're walking right through the middle of them. Don't worry. You're doing fine. Just don't look behind you. You keep walking, the trees now crowding in so tightly that even moonlight has trouble finding you. The deeper you go, the more the forest seems to hum, not with insects, not with birdsong, but with something lower, like a voice stuck just beneath the earth. And that's when you see her. She sits on a stump, hunched and wrapped in layers of wool and shadow. You might mistake her for a pile of rags, if not for the eyes. Sharp. Clear. Fixed on you as if she'd been expecting you. She's old, but not frail. Her hands are stained. Not with dirt, but with something darker, redder, and long since dried. Lost, are you? She croaks, with a smile that shows more gum than tooth. You nod, unsure if you're supposed to be honest with forest people. In folklore, lies could curse you. But so could the truth. She pats the spot beside her. Come close. I've got a story for you, she says. A birth story. Underscore 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 underscore. In a village not far from this very forest, maybe even one you passed on your way here, there lived a midwife. She was the only one for miles, so when labor came, people summoned her. Through snow, rain, plague, it didn't matter. She always arrived. With herbs. With tools. With hands steady as stone. But her most famous delivery wasn't human. It happened on a night thick with fog. A child was born in silence. No cries. No breath. But with eyes wide open, and a grin, already formed on its tiny lips. The mother fainted. The father ran from the room. Only the midwife stayed. She looked into those unnatural eyes and whispered, "You're not meant for this world, are you?" Some say it was a changeling, one of the Fae, swapped in for a real child. Others say it was the devil's first try at blending in. Whatever it was, the midwife didn't kill it. She didn't abandon it in the woods. No, she did something worse. She raised it. The villagers noticed odd things. The child never aged, exactly. It changed. Some days it looked 5 years old. Other days, it looked 30. It would hum strange tunes in the middle of the night, songs no one had heard but everyone remembered after hearing. It walked without sound, even on gravel. Animals died near it. Fires refused to burn where it slept. Eventually, the midwife confessed to the priest. "I've raised it wrong," she said. "Not because I failed, but because I succeeded." That night, the church bell rang by itself. The next morning, the child was gone. The midwife was found sitting in her chair, smiling. Her heart had stopped, but her body stayed warm for 3 days. No one touched her. They buried her with her hands folded, as if still holding something no one could see. Underscore 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 underscore. The old woman on the stump finishes her story, eyes twinkling with that peculiar pride storytellers always have when the tale is just unsettling enough to stick with you for years. "She was a fool," she mutters, almost to herself. "You never raise what doesn't cry." And then she's gone. Not dramatically. Not in a puff of smoke. You blink, and she's simply not there anymore. The stump is empty. No footprints. Just the sound of distant crying, far too high-pitched to be anything natural. Scholars argue over the origins of these changeling legends. Some believe they were early ways to explain conditions like autism or birth defects. Others think they were moral warnings disguised as folklore. But the details, the unnerving smiles, the strange songs, the refusal to age, appear in stories from across medieval Europe, all suspiciously consistent. It makes you wonder, were they really all just stories? Or was there something being covered up, something easier to blame on the fae than to face in the cradle? You pick up the pace now. Something in the air has shifted. The forest feels closer, heavier. Like it's waiting. You spot a crooked signpost ahead, barely more than a splintered board nailed to a leaning tree. Carved into it, the bone path. No arrow. No directions. Just a name. Well, onward. The bone path is narrower than you'd like. It curls between gnarled tree roots and stones that rise like teeth from the ground. Every so often, you see what you think might be a twig, until you step over it and realize it was a finger bone. Just lying there. Polished smooth by time or touch. You don't ask whose. The forest doesn't like questions. The path leads you to a clearing. In the center stands a crooked cottage with a chimney that leans like it's tired. Smoke dribbles from it in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of onions, dried herbs, and something more gamey. Inside, someone's cooking. Someone who knows you're coming. You knock. The door creaks open before your knuckles land. She's in there, small, wiry, wearing a cloak stitched from mismatched animal pelts. Her eyes are pale and bright, her mouth thin as thread. On the table beside her, a bubbling pot. You don't want to ask what's in it, but she tells you anyway. Bone broth, she grins. But not just any bones. These are selective. She ladles a bit into a wooden bowl and sets it down. Have a sip. Or just sit and listen. Either way, I'll tell you a tale. Underscore 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 underscore. In a medieval village much like this one, they used to say that if a woman knew too much about healing, she must have learned it from the devil. If she could cure a fever, it meant she could cause one. If she knew which root soothed the stomach, she probably knew which one stopped the heart. They called her a witch, of course. Her name's forgotten now, burned from the records and from memory, or so they hoped, but her soup recipe, that lived on. According to legend, this woman didn't just use herbs in her stews. She used bones. Not for flavor, don't be silly. For clarity. See, she believed that the marrow of the dead held memory. When simmered long enough, it released whispers. Drink it, and you'd hear secrets. Drink enough, and you'd know everything. Wars could be prevented. Lovers revealed. Curses untangled. Naturally, the village council tried it. What they heard, they never repeated. But within a week, the mayor had drowned himself in the well, the priest had confessed to crimes no one understood, and the baker fled to the woods with a goat, never to be seen again. The witch? She vanished. Her home was burned. But the villagers were left with three things: a silence they couldn't explain, a fear they couldn't name, and a taste they couldn't forget. Generations later, in quiet kitchens, people still whispered the ingredients to each other: root of burdock, tongue of goose, and one bone, from someone who died knowing something. Underscore 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 underscore. The woman across from you chuckles. Don't worry, she says, stirring the pot. This one's just from a tax collector. Not very flavorful, but full of guilt. You notice now that every tool in the cottage is made of bone, ladles, hooks, even the door latch. The shelves are lined with jars, each labeled in a script that slants wrong. Some of the jars contain eyes. Some blink. Folklorists have long debated these witches' kitchen stories. Were they rooted in real herbalism? Were they sexist morality tales wrapped in stew and superstition? Possibly both. But one detail repeats too often to ignore: the broth. Always described as rich, dark, and tasting like forgotten truths. A note carved into one medieval recipe reads, "Boil until memories rise like oil." Whatever that means. You glance back at the bubbling pot. The surface shifts. You swear you see faces there briefly. Familiar ones. One of them might be your own. Time to go. You nod to the woman. She winks. Come back if you're hungry for answers. Outside, the air feels cleaner. Lighter. Until you look down and notice that the path ahead is lined with skulls, small ones. Not human. Probably. They chatter softly as you pass, as if arguing about what you are. You don't stop to ask. You leave the bone path behind, though a part of you suspects it's not done with you yet. The forest opens up slightly now, revealing a ridge where the trees stand and the sky appears in fractured glimpses. You follow the ridge to a strange silhouette on the horizon, tall, jagged, and entirely out of place. It's a ruined castle, or what's left of one. Towers snapped like breadsticks. Walls slumped like they've sighed too many times. The gates hang open on rusted hinges, inviting in that peculiar way only haunted places can. Inside, stone corridors wind like veins, cold and echoing with every footstep. The deeper you go, the colder it gets. Not the kind of cold that makes you shiver. The kind that makes you forget warmth was ever real. Somewhere, a bell tolls. Not loudly. Just once. Like a warning whispered under breath. And that's when you hear it, the softest scraping. Rhythmic. Relentless. Like fingernails on stone. Then the voice, low, sleepless, and cracked. I am the king, it rasps. And I have not slept in 7 years. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. Once upon a time, not that anyone kept proper calendars, there ruled a man obsessed with waking. While most kings drank and hunted and warred, this one feared sleep. He believed it was death's rehearsal. Every night his body begged for rest, and every night he refused. He hired alchemists to brew foul-smelling tonics to keep him alert. He commissioned monks to chant through the night so his mind had no silence to slip into. He even had the clocks changed, hours lengthened, bells rung off beat, so he would never feel rhythm, never feel the lull. But insomnia is a strange beast. At first, it makes you sharp. Then, it makes you see. The king began to hallucinate. He claimed the tapestries whispered. The marble busts wept. He said the shadows beneath his throne tried to braid themselves into nooses. The court played along. What choice did they have? He was still the king. One day, he ordered the construction of a special room, completely lightless, padded, sealed. He would spend 1 hour in it every morning to test sleep. Just 1 hour. Eyes open. Breathing slow. Listening. He emerged after the first visit with his beard half-gray. After the third, he spoke only in riddles. After the 7th, he smiled. I've seen what lies under the beds of the gods, he said. They sleep too. And they dream of us. After that, he banned sleep throughout the palace. Servants collapsed at their posts. Advisors chewed bark and coal to stay awake. Musicians played endless, dissonant lullabies designed to prevent rest. The court became a waking nightmare, a place where no one remembered how it felt to blink without fear. Eventually, the king disappeared. Some say he ascended, walked out of his body like a man leaving his shirt behind. Others say he's still in the sealed room, finally asleep, and dreaming something through you. Underscore 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 underscore. You freeze in the corridor. The scraping sound has returned. Closer. You turn toward it slowly and find a wall. Just a wall. Except, there's a painting on it now. One you're sure wasn't there before. A regal figure with burning eyes and a crown melting down the side of his face. His finger points, not toward you, but toward the corridor behind you. You don't look. Some historians believe stories like this were political allegories. Sleep deprivation was a form of power, of control. A king who denied rest also denied rebellion. But that doesn't explain why the same story appears in places that never had kings. The sleepless ruler. The whispering walls. The padded chamber where reality peels. Maybe it's all metaphor. Or maybe there really was a man who stared too long into the darkness and found it staring back, with his own face. You exit the ruins through a narrow doorway that wasn't there earlier. The door closes behind you, slow and deliberate. You do not try to reopen it. Outside, the night is darker. Thicker. As if the world just blinked and forgot to open its eyes again. The path now runs alongside a ravine, narrow and slick with moss. Trees lean away here, as if even they don't wish to look down. At the bottom, blackness. Not just shadow, but an absolute absence of light, as if something devours it. The air is quieter here. Even the wind forgets to breathe. Eventually, the trail leads you to something unexpected, a well. Old, lopsided, stones crumbling at the edges. A rusted bucket hangs from the rope, perfectly still despite the breeze. You approach, peering into the darkness below, and hear it. A voice. Not an echo. Not a trick. A voice. Whispering. And it's your name. Underscore 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 underscore. In medieval villages, wells were sacred. Not just sources of water, but sources of memory. They saw everything, the births, the deaths, the blood wrenched from hands that shouldn't have been stained. Over time, people started talking to them. Not for reflection. For confession. They believed a well could carry a secret deeper than any priest. There's one tale that always returns, passed down in different tongues, always the same shape. A woman lived alone on the edge of town. People said she talked too much to the well. Every morning she would kneel beside it, whisper, and drop a single coin. They mocked her at first, until she started answering questions no one had asked. She knew when cows would miscarry. When children would fall from ladders. She knew who the priest had been meeting behind the chapel. They called her cursed, naturally. Demanded she stop. She smiled and said, "I only repeat what the well tells me." So they filled it with stones. 2 weeks later, the village well dried up. Their crops withered. Livestock began dying without cause. The people panicked. They dug up the old well, cleared the stones, and looked inside. No water. Just bones. Dozens of them. Clean. Arranged. And at the bottom, the woman's shawl, tied into a knot that formed the symbol for truth in the old tongue. No one knows if she jumped or was thrown in. Or if she ever existed at all. But the whispering? That part remains. Underscore 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 underscore. You look back down into the well before you. The whispering has stopped. In its place, a faint, rhythmic dripping. Like water from a tap that's forgotten how to close. You shouldn't say anything. But something compels you. You lean in and whisper, "What do you know about me?" The rope twitches. The bucket lifts, just slightly, then lowers again. You step back, pulse loud in your ears. Suddenly, the wind returns, hard and fast, like something exhaling directly into your face. Leaves scatter. Branches bend. And the well goes silent. Folklorists suggest these stories reflect the fear of knowledge without source, truths gained without earning them. Wells, like minds, weren't meant to hold everything. Especially not other people's guilt. Still, the stories persist. Of talking wells. Of secrets drawn up like water. Of people who asked questions they couldn't unask, and got answers that never stopped whispering. You move on. But the path is different now. There are stones arranged in strange patterns. Twigs bent into runes. The forest has started to speak back. A crow lands on a branch overhead. Tilts its head. Says nothing. But its eyes follow you. Almost knowingly. You realize something. You've stopped asking where you're going. The forest has decided. You're not traveling anymore. You're being led. The air grows warmer, unnaturally so, like someone left the oven door open in the middle of the woods. You smell smoke, but not firewood or campfire. It's a sour kind of smoke. Heavy. Like old candles melted down with hair and iron nails. You follow it, even though your instincts beg you not to. The trees thin until you find yourself at the edge of a field. And at the center of that field is a wedding. Tables sag under the weight of food. Wildflowers are woven through linen. Candles flicker despite the absence of wind. And the guests, well, they're still. Not unmoving, unnaturally still. Each one is frozen mid-bite, mid-toast, mid-laughter. Their faces are pale. Hands clasped tight around utensils. Eyes wide. Smiles stiff. And at the head of the table? The bride. Underscore 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 underscore. She's dressed in ivory lace, stained at the hem. Her hair is braided with thorns. A crown of dried roses tilts slightly on her head. Her eyes are closed. Her chest doesn't rise. And yet, she sits there. Upright. Regal. Hands folded gently over a bouquet of wilted lavender and bone-white lilies. In one version of the story, she died the night before her wedding. Fell from a horse. Or drowned. Or choked on a cherry pit. Folklore rarely agrees on details. What is agreed upon is what happened after. Her groom, they say, refused to grieve. He demanded the ceremony proceed. He dressed her himself. Carried her to the chapel. Whispered vows into her lifeless ear. Then, when the priest hesitated, he cut the man's hand and made him sign the marriage scroll in blood. The feast followed. Guests too afraid to leave. The food uneaten. The music discordant. And the bride seated at the head of the table, as if watching over her own wake. Midnight came. She blinked. Only once. And everyone who had seen it pretended they hadn't. The next morning, the guests were gone. The groom vanished. The bride? Still seated. smiling faintly. Over the years, villagers swore the table never rotted, that the candles never melted lower, that wildflowers grew faster in the field around it, but only in the shape of rings, like dozens of footsteps circling her, over and over. Underscore 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 underscore. You step closer, and the air thickens. The guest's eyes, glassy, waxy, don't blink. But you feel them watching. Not judging. Just noticing. You dare to look into the bride's face. And for a moment, just one breath's length of time, you think she exhales. Some historians claim these tales were warnings about grief, about letting the dead rest. Others see a reflection of medieval Europe's obsession with ritual, where the performance of love outweighed its reality. But no one quite explains how these stories keep showing up. Different countries. Different centuries. Same bride. Same table. Same smile. You back away. Slowly. Respectfully. The forest greets you again like a door gently swinging open behind you. But you notice something new, your own footsteps sound muffled. As if the earth is trying not to wake something. Behind you, a whisper rides the wind. Not a warning. A lullaby. Soft. Repetitive. In a language you almost understand. It's a song of vows never broken. The forest narrows once more, but this time the silence feels engineered. As if something has muffled the world, like a hand over your ears. Even your own footsteps seem to vanish beneath you. The trees arch into tight walls, and ahead, a structure emerges. It's not a house, or a castle, or a shrine. It's something in between. A crumbling stone building, long abandoned, vines wrapped tightly around its base. A faded cross still clings to the upper window. This was once a monastery. Now, it is a shell of quiet, but not empty. You step inside. And there it is, the sound. Faint scratching. Scurrying. And chewing. Underscore 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 underscore. According to legend, this monastery belonged to the Order of Silent Mercy, a group of monks who took not just a vow of silence, but a vow of memory. They were scribes, meant to record not only history, but sin. Every confession, every cruel act, every whispered regret, was written by hand in ink that never faded. But they were overrun. Not by men, not by soldiers, not even by plague. By rats. It began slowly, bites in the corners of manuscripts. Then entire pages devoured. But these weren't ordinary vermin. No traps worked. No poison touched them. And they never went for food. Only for the parchment. Only for the words. The monks prayed harder. Sharpened their pens into weapons. Lit incense that burned with herbs forbidden by the church. But still, the chewing continued. And then the monks began to disappear. One by one, gone. No blood. No remains. Only scraps of their robes. And chewed pages, always the same sections. Confessions involving names. Eventually, the abbot was left alone. He locked himself in the tower and wrote a single sentence over and over again: "They are eating the sins faster than I can write them." He vanished the next morning. All that remained were claw prints across the final page. Underscore 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 underscore. You wander the broken hallways of the monastery, stone lit dimly by what little moonlight seeps through shattered stained glass. And that's when you hear it, the faint squeak. Then another. Then dozens. Tiny paws across the stones. Eyes glinting from the shadows. You see them now, rats. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. But they don't move toward you. They cluster around the old altar. And on that altar? A book. Open. Pages fluttering despite the lack of wind. The rats are nibbling the corners, not hungrily, but carefully. Page by page. Like readers. Like archivists. Preserving something by consuming it. You step closer. The page before you reads. Forgive me, Father, for I have buried her with her eyes open. I wanted her to keep watching me. The ink begins to fade as you read it. The rats chew faster. You close the book gently and step back. Some folklorists believe this story was born from the tension between knowledge and decay. Monasteries were the keepers of secrets, but nature, in the form of gnawing time, devoured even the most sacred memory. Others say it's simpler than that. That sin, if not absolved, wants to be remembered. And if no one will speak it, something else will. Underscore 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 underscore. You leave the monastery quietly, the chewing behind you fading into a soft, almost soothing rhythm. Like raindrops. Or fingertips brushing parchment. The path ahead is darker now. Not from shadow. But from what memory refuses to let go. The night deepens, not by degree, but by texture. The dark now feels layered, like velvet stacked on velvet, soundless and thick. The air tastes of brass and dust, like the inside of an old clock. Somewhere in the distance, a bell chimes. Not loud. Not close. But steady. You follow it, instinctively. There's a pull now, as if something ahead has been waiting, not just for anyone, but for you. The forest clears, and you see it. A tower. No walls. No surrounding castle. Just a stone spire that climbs impossibly high, wrapped in rusted iron chains, half swallowed by ivy. There are no doors, just a stair spiraling up its outer edge like a serpent made of stone. And every step, every single step, has a name carved into it. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. According to the stories, this tower was not built, it grew. Formed from the regrets of a clockmaker who tried to measure time too precisely. He had designed a clock that could track not just hours and minutes, but thoughts. Every tick marked a decision made. Every tock, a hesitation. But the clock broke. Or, perhaps, it understood him too well. It began to chime at odd times. When he lied. When he stole. When he dreamed of things he shouldn't have. And soon, the chimes became so constant that he heard nothing else. His workshop became a ringing tomb. So he built the tower. Every step he carved from stone. Every stone from a mistake. He believed that if he could walk high enough, with every error beneath his feet, he could rise above them. They found him years later, halfway up the spiral, knees to chest, hands clasped over his ears, whispering. Too many seconds. Not enough forgiveness. No one ever found the clock. But the tower remained. And continued to grow. Underscore 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 underscore. You place a foot on the first step. It hums beneath your weight, like a piano key pressed softly. Your name is not carved into any stone, yet. But something tells you, it could be. As you ascend, the names become stranger. Some are scratched out. Some are written in alphabets you don't recognize. One step simply reads, "Not me." You reach a landing where a great iron mechanism sits exposed to the elements. Gears as tall as you. Levers bent into unnatural angles. It's not turning. It's trembling. Like it wants to move, but can't decide in which direction. On a rusted panel, the phrase, "Time remembers what you try to forget." You hear it now. Not the bell. The ticking. Inside your skull. It's not your heartbeat. You'd know if it was. This is older. More mechanical. A rhythm set before you were born, continuing long after. Some medieval philosophers believed time was not a straight line, but a spiral. That every choice we made was a loop tightening around us. That regret built monuments, not of stone, but of repetition. A tower you could never stop climbing because you refused to stop remembering. Others said the tower is real, and that it only appears to those carrying too many unfinished hours in their chest. Underscore 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 underscore. You step down. The tower doesn't protest. But the ticking lingers in your ears as you walk away. Not fading. Just embedding. Behind you, a new step carves itself in silence. And waits. You descend from the tower slowly, every breath thicker than the last, like the night is turning to syrup. The forest welcomes you back, but it no longer feels passive. Every leaf seems to watch. Every shadow folds itself a little tighter when you pass. You are no longer walking through the woods. You are walking with it. Soon, the trees part into a meadow bathed in silver-blue moonlight. Quiet. Unmoving. The grass sways, but there's no wind. At the center sits a young girl, barefoot, still, wearing a white dress stained at the hem with ash and moss. Her face is blank, expressionless, but atop her head is a crown of thistles, dried and tangled, like someone tried to make a halo out of pain. She looks at you. And she speaks. You're late. Underscore 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 underscore. Long ago, in a village that feared no man but every omen, a child was born under a cursed moon. Not red. Not blue. Just wrong. The midwife's hands shook. The cows wailed in their stalls. The air turned thick, like breathing through a damp cloth. Still, the baby lived. She didn't cry. Didn't blink. Just stared at the world like it had already disappointed her. By 3, she could walk into fire without burning. By 5, she could name the dead in the cemetery, ones no one had spoken of for generations. By 7, she vanished. The village searched for days. Eventually, they found her at the edge of the woods, building a crown from thistles and whispering to the earth. When they tried to bring her back, she screamed, not out of fear, but rage. "They're not done telling me things," she said. "And you never listened." They left her there. Better that way, they said. Let the woods raise her. Or eat her. Either way, she was no longer theirs. And the woods did raise her. Or perhaps the woods didn't raise her at all, maybe she raised them. Over time, travelers reported seeing her, always at the edge of fields, always seated, always with that crown. Sometimes she offered advice. Other times, warnings. But always in riddles. Always with eyes that didn't quite reflect the light. Underscore 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 underscore. The girl in front of you stands now. She's not threatening. Not kind. Just certain. People forget, she says. But the land doesn't. She offers you a single thistle from her crown. You don't take it. Not yet. You walk in stories, she continues. But some stories walking you. Behind her, the meadow seems to ripple, just slightly. Shapes move within it. Not people. Not beasts. But something in between. Crawling. Watching. Listening. Not to her, but through her. Do you want to forget? She asks. The question lands heavy. Not philosophical. Practical. Like she can do it. Remove the memory of this walk, of these woods, of the feeling that something ancient has been riding just beneath your skin all night. But you don't answer. Not yet. Historians write off these tales as countryside metaphors. The Thistle Girl represents the forgotten, children who were too different, too sensitive, too much. Some call her a folk god. Others, a curse in human form. But the stories remain remarkably consistent. She waits in a meadow. She wears a crown that hurts. And she never moves unless spoken to. Underscore 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 underscore. She steps back now, slowly sinking into the grass, never breaking eye contact. The field swallows her as softly as fog. The thistle she offered falls to the ground. And somehow, it doesn't bounce. It settles. Like it belongs. You leave the meadow in silence. Behind you, the grass whispers in a language that sounds an awful lot like regret. You find the path again, though now it feels less like you're following it, and more like it's following you. Each turn is somehow familiar, like a dream you've walked through too many times. The moon has vanished behind a blanket of clouds, and ahead of you, faint lights begin to flicker in the mist. Candles. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, lining both sides of the road. No lanterns. No torches. Just bare flames suspended in glass jars, placed at even intervals. Each flame steady. No breeze touches them. You follow the candlelit path, careful not to break the silence. After a while, you notice something odd. Some of the candles are warm. Others are cold. And under each one is a name. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. In the late medieval period, there were whispers of a village that held no graveyard, no funeral rites, no mourning bells. Instead, they had the road. When someone died, or was believed to have died, the villagers would take a candle, carve the person's name into the wax, and place it along this road. If the flame stayed lit through the night, the soul had passed peacefully. If the candle guttered or went out entirely, the villagers would lock their doors, because that meant the soul had turned around. The stories vary. Some say the road led directly to the afterlife, a rare shortcut through the veil. Others claim the path was a test, a soul tempted to return by the pull of unfinished business, or bitter grief, or pure spite. A woman named Ilse once placed a candle for her husband, who'd vanished in a storm. The next morning, the glass jar was shattered, the candle missing, and muddy footprints led back to her home. They found her days later, seated at the hearth, her mouth filled with wax. Her husband never returned, but the chair across from her was always warm. Underscore 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 underscore. You pause before one of the candles on the path. The flame burns blue, not orange, and the wax bears a name scratched so deeply, it cuts through to the glass. It's your name. You didn't put it there. And the flame flickers. Just once. Then steadies. Your breath catches in your throat. You try to move on, but the candle beside yours suddenly extinguishes with a pop. The glass fogs over. The wax begins to melt downward, carving a face into itself as it cools. It's smiling. A little too wide. A little too knowingly. You step back. Not out of fear, at least, not entirely. It's a recognition. You've walked into a story that's already counted you. Some historians believe these road candle rituals were symbolic, a psychological coping method in villages struck by frequent death and famine. Others think the candle names were real, and that keeping a name illuminated was a way of keeping someone remembered or anchored. But folklore insists otherwise. That a candle with your name is not about memory. It's about invitation. Underscore 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 underscore. The path continues. You notice now that some of the candles ahead are cracked. Some have been relit. Others are upside down. And some are floating. Just slightly. As if the names beneath them never belonged to the ground in the first place. You walk faster. But the flames never flicker. The candlelit path fades as dawn tries to push against the darkness. But it doesn't break. This forest has no interest in dawn. It just remembers that such a thing once existed. Up ahead, rooftops peek through the trees. A village. Tiny, still, almost arranged. The houses look untouched by time, thatch unfrayed, wood unweathered, doors gently closed but unlocked. You step onto the single cobblestone road that runs straight through the center. It is perfectly silent. No birds. No dogs. No movement behind the windows. And every home has something curious in common. The curtains are drawn shut. But not all the way. Each one has a tiny slit in the middle. As if something inside is always watching. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. They say there once was a village where no one dreamed. Not because they didn't sleep. Oh no, they slept deeply. Almost too deeply. At the same time. Every night. Like a bell tolled in their bones. But no one ever remembered a single dream. Not children, not elders, not even the priest. Not even the mad. People began to notice. Some found it peaceful, no nightmares, no sweating, no gasps in the dark. Others became uneasy. What was sleep without dreams, they wondered. Was it still yours? Then, the painter vanished. He was the first to claim he'd seen something in his sleep. Not a dream exactly, but a room, a round chamber, all stone, with no door. Just a single hole in the ceiling, through which a rope dangled. Every night, he said, he stood below it. Every night, someone pulled the rope a little higher. He disappeared the day after telling the story. His house was locked from the inside. His bed unmade. On the floor, a painting of the chamber. Except it wasn't paint. It was ash. From that day on, the villagers stopped sleeping in beds. They napped in chairs and barns, at riverbanks. Anything to avoid the real sleep. But it didn't matter. The dreams were gone again. And the dreams had taken something with them. Underscore 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 underscore. You walk past one of the houses and feel it, eyes behind the curtain. Not blinking. Not frightened. Just resigned. Further down the road, you find a bench. Sitting on it, an old man, still as stone. He doesn't acknowledge you. But his mouth opens slowly, and he whispers. They come at the end of sleep. Just before the dream should begin. You'll feel them pulling the thread behind your eyes. You try to speak, but he raises a finger. There are no names here, he says. Just echoes. We live in the pause. In the moment before story. Then he shuts his eyes. And you're alone again. Folklorists struggle with this legend. Some see it as a metaphor for trauma, entire communities so shattered they forget how to imagine. Others argue it's about control, a myth from regions where dreams were feared as sinful. But then there are those rare historians who ask something stranger. What if dreams are not produced by the brain? What if they are received? And what if this village simply fell out of range? Underscore 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 underscore. You turn toward the edge of the village, where the trees begin again. There's no farewell here. No exit sign. Just a stretch of grass where the cobblestones stop like someone lost interest mid-paving. Behind you, the houses remain still. But one curtain, just one, twitches shut. Softly. Like a sigh. The grass underfoot is soft now, too soft. Like walking across a quilt of moss in memory. The trees ahead grow taller, thinner, their bark pale and papery like old skin. There are no birds here. No animals. Not even insects. Just silence and tension. Like the forest is holding its breath. A few paces in, you notice something strange. Your shadow, once long and stretched beneath the candlelight, is gone. Not faint. Not fainter. Gone. You look around. The moon still hangs above, cold and distant. But nothing about you casts darkness anymore. That's when you hear the crunch of leaves behind you. Then, a second crunch. But when you turn, there's no one. Not even yourself. Underscore 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 underscore. They tell stories of a man who hunted without a shadow. Not because of magic or blessing, but because of a mistake. He was once the best tracker in the land. Could follow a deer across stone. Could find a fox through fog. But pride, as ever, demanded payment. One night, in pursuit of something not quite animal, he stepped into a circle of stones he didn't recognize. The moonlight froze. The bird stopped mid-flap. And his shadow stayed behind. He returned to camp, but was never quite right again. He could no longer be tracked. Dogs wouldn't follow him. Children cried at his presence. When he passed through town, people's reflections would blur. The hunter, now shadowless, wandered deeper into the woods. They say he wasn't alone. That something followed him. That without his shadow, something else stepped into it. And wore it. Underscore 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 underscore. You move carefully now, watching for your reflection in anything, a puddle, a pane of broken glass, the curve of polished bark. But you don't see yourself. Instead, you see something almost like you. Same height. Same stance. But the posture is wrong. Like it's waiting for you to blink. Ahead, you spot antlers. A deer? No. Too tall. Too still. It stands on two legs. Its body human-shaped, draped in the hide of something else. The antlers sway, but there's no wind. Then, it lifts its arm, and your shadow returns, trailing behind it like smoke. Except, it moves independently. Dragging. Slower than it should. Like it missed you. Underscore 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 underscore. Some say the hunter still walks the woods, chasing echoes of himself. Others say he became the thing he was hunting. That to lose your shadow is to lose your anchor, to become something not entirely real. Folklore warns us, shadows are not just tricks of light. They are records. The world's way of remembering where you are, and what you've done. To lose it is to erase your place. To forget yourself. And maybe more frightening, to let something else remember you instead. Underscore 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 underscore. The forest opens again, and your shadow falls into place beside you once more. But it drags behind a little too long. Hesitates at corners. Lags like it's catching up. You don't look at it anymore. You keep walking. Because if you stop, it might remember how to walk on its own. The forest narrows once again, this time into a corridor of ash trees, tall, gray, and brittle-looking, as though they'd shatter if you touched them too hard. But you don't. You're careful now. There's a heaviness in the air. Not danger, not quite. Something closer to fullness. The kind that makes your stomach clench even though you're not hungry. And then the scent hits you. Roasted meat. Sugared almonds. Cloves and honey and something darker beneath, iron? Earth? It's the smell of a feast, prepared without end. You step into a clearing. And there they are. Dozens of tables arranged in a spiral. Silver platters. Wax-dripping candelabras. Velvet runners, some moth-eaten, others pristine. And seated at every table, people. Still. Silent. Mouths open. Fingers curled mid-bite. And the food? Rotten. Underscore 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 underscore. According to the tale, this feast was once real. A duke, greedy and vain, threw a celebration to last 3 days and nights. He invited nobles, merchants, even peasants, so long as they could flatter him. His one rule? No one leaves until the last course is served. But the cooks were cursed. One had once stolen herbs from a sacred glade. Another had baked bread using water from a haunted spring. Their sin, according to local lore, was pride in feeding too well. On the second night, the bread wept blood. On the third, the wine turned thick and black. And the meat? It began to twitch. The guests tried to leave. But the forest had already shifted. The roads bent backward. The doors wouldn't open. And the servants began smiling with too many teeth. Then the real meal began. Underscore 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 underscore. You step carefully through the tables. Each guest is trapped mid-motion. One woman raises a spoon filled with flies. A man chews on a chicken leg long turned to bone. Children press sugar apples to their lips, apples that now bleed jam-colored mold. And in the center of the spiral, the Duke himself. Reclining on a throne of wine barrels, eyes glassy, lips parted in an eternal toast. His cup is empty. His crown has fused into his scalp. At his feet, a single plate. Untouched. You look closer. There's a slip of parchment beneath it. It reads, "You have not been served yet." The air thickens. The candles flicker. Somewhere nearby, a fork clinks against china. You do not sit. Folklorists have puzzled over this legend for centuries. Was it a warning against gluttony? Against overstaying one's welcome? Against ambition? Perhaps. But others say it's older. A story not of food, but of choice. That there are places where time pauses until you decide to consume. Or be consumed. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. You step back, and the feast remains frozen. But one of the guests, just one, blinks. Then smiles. Their teeth are made of sugar. You don't stay to see if they crack. The forest thins, not from age, but from memory. Trees stand farther apart now, as if forgetting how to form a canopy. The earth beneath your feet becomes rougher, stones jutting from the soil like bones that grew tired of staying buried. Ahead, a hill rises. Not steep, but long. So long, it seems to pull at the horizon itself. And on its sides, scattered like autumn leaves, are names. Carved into stone. Etched into wood. Burned into rusted metal. Thousands. No birthdates. No epitaphs. Just names, some whole, some crumbling, others scratched out like someone had second thoughts about remembering them at all. You place a hand on one. It feels warm. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. They call it the Hill of Forgotten Names. No one builds it. It just collects. Every time someone vanishes from memory, truly vanishes, not just from mind but from record, their name appears here. Not just those who died. Those erased. Abandoned. Swallowed by silence. A bard once tried to climb it, thinking he could learn all the names and weave them into a song so long it would undo forgetting itself. He made it halfway. He stopped at a name that wasn't a name at all, just the sound of a breath, carved in a spiral. When he returned, he couldn't remember his name anymore. He called himself the end of a sentence. Wrote poems with no subject. Spoke in third person, then none. They buried him at the base of the hill. But the next day, no one could find the grave. Just another stone with a single word. Almost. Underscore 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 underscore. You climb slowly. The wind rises as you do, carrying whispers. Not voices exactly. Just syllables, fragments of once loved words. Laughter without a face. Tears with no name to hold them. Halfway up, you trip. Your hand lands on a plaque made of bone. It reads, "You're here because no one else said your name tonight." You don't ask how it knows. The top of the hill finally appears. It is flat. Bare. But not empty. At the center stands a mirror. Framed in iron, tall as a door, fogged over. You approach. Your reflection is there. But it does not move when you do. It stands still, watching. Then it blinks. And the fog clears. You see yourself, yes, but written faintly across your chest, backward in the glass, is a name you don't recognize. But it feels familiar. A little too familiar. Underscore 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 underscore. Some say this hill isn't cursed at all. That it's a mercy. That to be remembered here, even here, means something of you still echoes. That even if no lips speak your name, the earth remembers. Others say, beware. Because once your name appears here, it never leaves. Even if you do. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. You descend slowly, each step echoing louder than the one before. The names behind you do not shift. But one stone turns warmer and begins to hum. You reach the edge of the woods. But there is no clearing. No field. No village. No sky. Only a doorway. Freestanding. Massive. Carved from a dark wood that gleams like oil. Its surface is covered in carvings, faces with mouths open, as if caught mid-scream, mid-laugh, mid-prayer. You cannot tell which. Some are human. Others, less so. There is no handle. Just a small plaque above the arch that reads, "You've come this far. Will you go further?" You don't answer. The door doesn't wait. It opens. Soundlessly. Beyond it lies a corridor of stone. Damp. Narrow. Lined with alcoves filled with things that almost look like furniture. Almost. Each one is twisted in a way that makes your mind itch. A chair with too many legs. A cradle big enough for a horse. A mirror turned toward the wall. You don't want to linger. And so, you walk. Underscore 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 underscore. The final tale they tell in this forest is one of a threshold. Not a place, not quite a moment, something in between. They say everyone walks to it eventually, even if only in dreams. Or in fever. Or in the moments just before the last breath. And they say what you find on the other side depends on what you carry with you. One man brought guilt and found only silence. A woman brought anger and walked out carrying nothing. A child walked through asleep and never came back, though they say you can still hear her laughing when the wind shifts just right. No one ever brings joy. No one ever dares. Underscore 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 underscore. At the end of the corridor stands a second door. This one is plain, almost gentle, carved from pale birch, with a ring of flowers etched into its center. It doesn't open. You have to knock. And when you do 3 times, because of course it's 3, it swings open into light. Not blinding. Not heavenly. Just soft. Like morning after a storm. Like the space between waking and sleep. You step through. And you are no longer walking. Underscore 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 underscore. The forest doesn't vanish. It doesn't release you. But it changes. It becomes quieter. You feel it behind your ribs, still watching. Still remembering. But also letting go. The path ahead is no longer made of roots or stone. It's made of breath. Of thoughts that haven't formed yet. Of the wait just before dreams. Underscore 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 underscore. 300 words remain. Now we slow. Your steps soften. Your breath deepens. The forest dims behind you, its edges smudging like ink in water. The stories you've carried, all of them, settle in your bones. Not heavy. Not sharp. Just present. Like a coat that keeps you warm, even if you don't remember where it came from. Your name, whatever it is, feels further away. And that's okay. There is peace in being slightly forgotten. In being between. Your shadow stretches, long and gentle, and doesn't flinch this time. The wind hums. The ground softens beneath you. The stars blink slower. Somewhere, in a field of candle jars and thistle crowns, a girl hums a lullaby with no words. A bell tolls. Once. Maybe twice. And the forest, at last, exhales. You are not afraid anymore. You are very tired. And you are very, very far from the world now. So rest. Close your eyes. You've gone further than most. You are safe. And tomorrow will remember just enough of you. End of script. Sweet dreams.